Welcome back to the channel. Today's story is intense, emotional, and not for the faint-hearted. It's a raw confession from a man who walked in on the unthinkable, his wife in the arms of another. But instead of confronting her, he packed his life into a single bag, and disappeared. What happened next will leave you speechless. If you love deep, dramatic, and mature story times, stay right here, because this one pulls you into the shadows. I've replayed that night in my head so many times that I can hear the smallest sounds even now. The soft hum of the refrigerator, the steady ticking of the wall clock, the muted hiss of the rain outside. Strange how your brain can freeze a moment in time when your entire world is falling apart. Before I say anything else, let me make something clear. I'm telling this story anonymously because she, the woman I'm about to talk about, never got caught by her husband. And honestly, even now, I don't know if she deserves to be exposed. What she did to me was catastrophic, yes, but it also shook me awake in a way nothing else ever had. So if some details seem vague, that's intentional. I'm protecting identities, mostly hers, but also mine. It started with a feeling. A gut-deep heaviness I couldn't explain. She had been distant for weeks, always brushing me off with a tired laugh, saying stress was eating her alive. She would fall asleep early, wake up late, and spend hours on her phone with her back turned to me. I wanted to believe her excuses. God, I tried to. But lies have a smell to them, warm, metallic, and impossible to ignore. That night, I got home earlier than usual. I remember unlocking the door quietly, not to surprise her, but because I was exhausted and didn't want to make noise. The house was dim except for the soft glow from our bedroom. I heard her voice immediately. Soft, breathless, and not alone. There was laughter, her laughter, a sound I hadn't heard in months. I froze. Not at the door, not in the hallway. I froze somewhere inside my chest, like a part of me simply refused to move forward, refused to see what came next. But the rest of my body kept going. My hand turned the doorknob. My feet carried me to the threshold. My eyes lifted, and then there it was, a scene that scorched itself into my memory with a cruelty that still wakes me at night. Her back arched, his hands gripping her waist. Their bodies tangled where only mine should have been. Her voice, God, her voice, saying things she hadn't whispered to me in years. My entire body went numb. People always talk about the anger that comes with betrayal, but no one warns you about the silence. The kind that eats your breath and holds your bones hostage. I didn't shout, I didn't collapse, I didn't even step into the room. I just stood there, watching the life I'd built crumble like dust slipping through my fingers. She didn't see me. They were too lost in their own world. My bed, my home, my wife and a stranger rewriting the story of my life without me. I backed away, slow and quiet. Just like I had entered. The moment I stepped out of the house, the rain swallowed me whole. Cold, heavy, cleansing, almost. I walked to my car without wiping my face, partly because of the rain, partly because I couldn't tell the difference between the water above and the water coming out of me. I didn't plan to vanish. But when betrayal hits you like that, sharp, raw, and uninvited, it changes your instincts. Mine screamed one thing: leave, now, before you break, before you become something you won't recognize. I drove to the storage unit I hadn't visited in years. The one where I kept the pieces of my life before marriage, the motorcycle I never finished restoring, the journals I never opened again, the last box from my bachelor apartment. I grabbed a duffel bag, stuffed whatever mattered into it, clothes, cash, documents, and left the rest behind. And that night, for the first time in my life, I chose myself. I packed my life into one bag. And I vanished. Where I went, who I met, what happened next. That's where this story really begins. When I vanished, I didn't have a destination. I just drove until the city lights dissolved behind me and the road turned into a thin ribbon stretching into nothingness. The rain followed me for hours, hammering against the windshield like it was trying to punch a hole through the night. Maybe it was a sign. Maybe it was a warning. Or maybe it was just the world matching the storm inside me. By dawn, I found myself near the coastline, somewhere miles away from where anyone knew my name, my face, or my story. I parked in front of an old, weather-beaten lodge with peeling paint and a neon sign that flickered like it was dying in slow motion. Perfect. I felt just as broken. I checked into a room without giving my real name. The woman at the counter didn't ask questions. She barely even looked at me. For a man trying to disappear, it was exactly what I needed. The room smelled like saltwater, old wood, and memories that weren't mine. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the duffel bag that now held the remnants of my marriage. My phone buzzed endlessly, calls, texts, voicemails. I didn't answer a single one. Instead, I powered it off, shoved it into the drawer, and let silence claim me. I slept until the sun dipped low again. When I woke up, I didn't feel rested. I felt empty, but in a strange way, it was the first kind of peace I'd had in months. I walked out to the shoreline, the sand cool beneath my feet, the wind brushing against my skin like it was trying to remind me I still existed. That's where I saw her. She stood barefoot near the rocks, her dress fluttering around her like a loose flag. She wasn't looking at me, she was staring into the ocean, as if daring it to swallow her whole. Something about her posture made me pause. Her shoulders were stiff, held too tightly, like she was barely holding herself together. I don't know why, but I walked toward her. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was loneliness, maybe it was because she looked like she carried her own ghosts. When she finally turned, her eyes held that haunted brightness I knew too well. A kind of fractured beauty. She blinked once, twice, studying me with a guarded expression. "You're not from here," she said. Not a question, an observation. "No," I replied, "just passing through." "Good," she muttered, looking back at the water. "People from here talk too much." A strange introduction, but fitting for two strangers running from something. I should have left it there. I should have walked away and kept my distance. But there was something magnetic about her, an energy that pulled you in, even when you knew touching it might burn you. "I'm staying at the lodge for a bit," I heard myself say. "Needed some space." She gave a tight smile. "Don't we all?" We didn't exchange names, didn't shake hands, didn't try to fill the silence. Instead, we stood there, listening to the waves crash against the shore like they were confessing all the things we didn't have the courage to say out loud. Eventually, she walked away. No goodbye, no explanation, just vanished into the narrow path leading toward the hills. But she left something behind. A scent of jasmine, a flicker of intrigue, and a spark of danger disguised as softness. Later that night, I sat on the lodge balcony, staring at the moonlit water, wondering why a stranger's presence lingered in my mind more than my wife's betrayal. And then, around midnight, someone knocked on my door. 3 slow taps, measured, intentional. When I opened it, it was her, the woman from the coast. And her eyes told me clearly. She wasn't there by accident. She didn't wait for an invitation. She walked past me the moment the door opened, brushing against my arm with a confidence that didn't match the fragile way she had stood on the shoreline earlier. I closed the door slowly, studying her as she moved around my room like she'd been there before. The lamp cast a soft amber glow across her face, highlighting a quiet sadness she carried like a shadow stitched to her skin. She wasn't smiling, but her eyes were sharp, too observant, too aware. "You left the beach too quickly," she said, turning to me. "Most people in this town talk for hours when they find someone willing to listen. I'm not most people. That," she said with a small smirk, "is exactly why I came." She sat on the edge of my bed, the same spot I had collapsed on that morning. I kept my distance, leaning against the dresser, arms crossed. "You look like a man who's running from something," she said softly. I didn't answer. I wasn't ready to be that vulnerable with a stranger whose name I didn't even know. She looked away, her fingers tracing patterns across the blanket. "Don't worry, I'm running too, maybe for longer than you." The silence that followed wasn't heavy, it was understanding. A quiet exchange between two broken people standing at the edge of their own unraveling. Finally, she said, "I shouldn't be here." "Then why are you?" She breathed in slowly, as if the truth burned on the way out. "Because you looked like someone who wouldn't judge me." Those few words lodged themselves deep in my chest. I watched her closely, the trembling fingers, the steady rise and fall of her breath, the way she wouldn't meet my gaze for more than a few seconds. She looked like someone desperately trying to hold herself together. "Do you want to talk about it?" I asked. She let out a laugh, short, brittle. "Talking hasn't saved me before." Then her expression shifted, softened, and I realized there was something else beneath the surface. Something darker, more dangerous. "But being with the right stranger," she whispered, "that can be a lifesaver." She wasn't flirting. This wasn't seduction. It was a confession. She leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "My husband has eyes everywhere. People he pays. People who owe him. People who pretend not to know what he does." Her voice trembled. "If he knew I spoke to another man, let alone came to his room, he would tear this town apart looking for us." Fear flickered behind her eyes. Real, raw fear. Is he hurting you? I asked. She hesitated, then shook her head, but the shake was too slow, too careful, too practiced. I can't talk about him, she whispered. Not yet, but I can tell you this, she finally looked at me again. I wasn't at the beach tonight because I wanted air. I was there because I was deciding whether to disappear. My breath caught. Disappear. The same word that had defined the last 24 hours for me. Then you showed up, she continued. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel completely alone. She stood, walking toward me, stopping close enough that I could feel her breath on my collarbone. Up close, I could see the vulnerability beneath the bravado. I don't need saving, she whispered. I just need someone who understands what it feels like to be broken in a place no one else can touch. Without thinking, I reached for her hand. She didn't pull away, but in that moment, just as her fingers curled around mine, someone walked past the window. A shadow, slow, heavy, she stiffened instantly, her breath catching in her throat. Her grip tightened. He's here, her voice trembled, and everything inside me went cold. She didn't have to explain. The terror in her eyes said everything. I moved silently toward the window, careful not to disturb the old wooden floorboards. The shadow outside lingered for a heartbeat, long enough for me to feel the air shift, before it slid away, disappearing into the dim glow of the lodge parking lot. Stay here, I whispered. She grabbed my wrist instantly. No, please, don't go out there. Her fingers were trembling, digging into my skin as if letting go of me meant losing her anchor. I looked down at her hand, small, cold, desperate, and something inside me clenched. I'm just going to check, I said. You don't understand, she whispered, voice breaking. He doesn't fight, he destroys. There it was again, that wave of fear shaped like a truth she wasn't ready to spill. And I, foolish or brave, wasn't ready to let fear control the next move. Not tonight. I gently freed my wrist and stepped outside. The night was thick, the kind of darkness that made the world feel smaller, almost claustrophobic. The ocean murmured in the distance, waves brushing the shore with the slow patience of something ancient and knowing. I scanned the lot. A silver SUV sat alone near the entrance. Engine off. Windows tinted. No movement. No footsteps. Just the quiet hum of danger lingering in the salt-scented air. When I stepped back into the room, she was pacing, shallow breaths, hands buried in her hair, a woman who looked ready to shatter. He's not outside anymore, I said softly. She shook her head. That means nothing. He's always around, always watching. I closed the door and locked it. Sit, I said gently. She sank onto the bed, her shoulders collapsing inward like the weight of her life had finally become too much. Tell me what's going on, I said, pulling a chair in front of her. All of it. She stared at her hands for a long time before speaking. My husband isn't just controlling. He's powerful, not government powerful, not businessman powerful. He's the kind of powerful that exists in shadows, behind favors, threats, and secrets nobody wants to say out loud. My chest tightened. This wasn't infidelity. This wasn't a broken marriage. This was survival. She continued quietly. People owe him. Towns obey him. Women disappear because of him. Her voice cracked on that last word. I stayed because leaving him meant starting a war one knew I couldn't win. Why now? I asked. She lifted her gaze, an ocean of grief swirling behind it. Because I found something I wasn't supposed to. Something hidden, something dangerous, and if he knew I saw it, she shook her head, tears gathering at the edges of her lashes. I wouldn't make it to morning. I leaned forward, my heart thundering. What did you find? She hesitated, then whispered. A list. What kind of list? A list of names. Her voice trembled. Women's names. Some I've met, some I haven't, and the dates next to them, the last dates they were seen. My breath hitched. This wasn't a jealous man. This wasn't paranoia. This was something darker, something deadly. Does anyone else know? I asked. No, she whispered, and if he even suspects that I'm talking to someone, it'll be too late. I sat back, exhaling slowly, realizing how deep I'd stepped into something I didn't understand. And you still came to me tonight. She nodded, tears slipping free at last. You looked like someone who had nothing left to lose, she said. And I needed someone who wasn't afraid to stand beside a ghost. I raised her chin gently. You're not a ghost. She closed her eyes. Not yet. Her words cut straight through me. Before I could respond, a loud thud echoed from down the hallway, heavy, abrupt, deliberate. She jolted, grabbing my hand again. He found me, she whispered. He always finds me. But when I opened the door to look, the hallway was empty, too empty, and then I saw it. A small folded note, slipped under the door while we spoke. I picked it up. 4 words, written in sharp, furious ink. She belongs to me. Everything inside me froze. The note felt heavier than paper should. It pulsed in my hand like something alive, an omen, a threat, a line drawn with a blade instead of ink. She belongs to me. 4 words that carried ownership, violence, and certainty. When I turned back toward her, she had already backed herself against the farthest wall, arms crossed tightly, chest rising and falling too fast, eyes wide with the kind of terror that comes from familiarity, not shock. He left that, she whispered. Of course he did. I locked the door again, though it suddenly felt laughably thin, just a wooden barrier between us and a man who clearly didn't believe in limits. We have to leave, I said. She shook her head hard. If we run, he will chase us. If he chases us, he will catch us. And if he catches us, you won't survive it. I'm not going to sit here and wait for him. You don't understand what he's capable of. Then explain it to me, I said. Everything. She looked at me for a long moment. Then something inside her broke, the resistance, the caution, the fear of saying too much. She exhaled shakily. He was never a normal husband. I married a man with charm and power, not realizing he also had secrets buried beneath that charm. At first it was little things, phone calls he couldn't take around me, trips he couldn't explain. Then it became money. Then it became people. Then it became women. She closed her eyes. Then it became disappearances. The room felt smaller suddenly. Those names on the list, I said. You think he. I don't think, she whispered. I know. The weight of her truth settled between us like a shroud. And the shadow earlier, I asked. He brought them, she said. His watchers. His collectors. The ones who follow orders without talking. If they're here, he knows I found the list. Everything clicked together then. The fear, her distance, her desire to vanish, her arrival at my door. She hadn't come to me because she wanted company. She came because she needed someone unconnected to her world. Someone expendable. You dragged me into this, I said quietly. Her eyes filled instantly. No, I tried to walk past you. I tried not to speak to you. But you looked lost. And I haven't cared about anything for months. I didn't mean to make you a target. I believed her. That was the worst part. Another thud echoed, closer this time. A door down the hall. A footstep, slow, heavy. We need to go, I said again, grabbing my bag. She nodded, but her hands trembled too violently to be useful. I held her wrist and pulled her toward the back exit. The lodge was silent except for our breaths and the faint hum of the ocean beyond the dunes. When we stepped outside, the cold air hit us like a slap. Where? She whispered. Anywhere but here. We rushed toward my car, but halfway across the lot, she stopped, frozen, eyes fixed on something behind me. I turned slowly. A figure stood near the SUV. Tall, broad, motionless, and smiling. Not kind, not human, a smile that stretched too wide, dripping with promise and possession. Her husband. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. He tilted his head, watching us the way a predator watches something already caught in its teeth. Her grip tightened around my hand. Don't let go, she breathed. I didn't. Instead, I pushed her into the passenger seat, slammed the door, and dove into the driver's side. Tires screeched, gravel exploded behind us, and the SUV burst into motion as we sped toward the highway. He won't stop, she said, voice cracking. Neither will I. We drove into the night, swallowed by darkness, hunted by a man who owned the shadows. We didn't stop for hours. And somewhere past dawn, somewhere between fear and freedom, she finally whispered her name. The name she had refused to give me. The name of the woman whose life had collided with mine in the sharpest, darkest way. I'm Elena, she said softly. And if you keep going with me, there's no turning back. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. After all I had lost, after all I had seen, after all I had become. I didn't slow down. I'm already gone, I said. And the road stretched ahead. Deep, unknown, dangerous. The place where people like us disappear. The vanishing point. This story is a work of fiction created for mature audiences only. It contains themes of infidelity, emotional trauma, and suspense that may be disturbing to some viewers. Any resemblance to actual persons, events, or places is purely coincidental. Viewer discretion is advised. Thank you for staying with me through this emotional and suspense-filled journey. Stories like this remind us how fragile trust can be, and how some escapes lead us into dangers we never expected. If this story pulled you in, don't forget to like, share, and drop your thoughts in the comments. I love hearing what you think and what you want next. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss another powerful story time. Your support means everything. Thank you for watching, commenting, and growing this community with me. Stay safe, stay strong, and I'll see you in the next story.